An HOA banned my dog, fined me over $1,200, and threatened to put a lien on my house. That alone sounds bad, but here is the part that makes absolutely no sense. I'm not part of their HOA. I never signed any paperwork, never agreed to their rules, and never paid a single dollar in dues. And yet, somehow, they decided I was fair game. Welcome back, everyone, and welcome if you're new. Today's story comes straight from legal advice, and is one of those HOA nightmares that starts out confusing, slowly becomes infuriating, and then escalates into something so ridiculous you almost don't believe it's real. Stick around for the updates, because the ending completely flips the situation on its head. OP owns a property that has been in place long before any planned development showed up nearby. There are no deed restrictions, no covenants, and no homeowners association tied to the land in any way. In 2011, the woods behind Op's house were cleared and turned into a brand new residential development. Every home in that development came with an HOA, strict covenants, and a long list of rules. OP's property, along with a few others, was never included. Their deed was never modified, and no HOA authority was ever established over their land. A year later, OP tore down their old 75-year-old house and built a new one. Because the new development added a road behind the property, OP worked with the township to slightly relocate the house on the lot. The township approved the change under a few conditions related to drainage, including installing buried stone drainage pits. These were not deed restrictions or HOA rules, just township requirements to obtain a final occupancy permit. OP complied fully, even paying to install similar drainage pits on a neighboring non-HOA property. Everything was approved, inspected, and signed off. For years, life was normal. OP owned 3 dogs, 2 Dobermans, and a German Shepherd, and had never received a single complaint. Then, out of nowhere, the HOA next door enacted a new rule banning what they labeled aggressive breeds. Dobermans and German Shepherds were on that list. OP didn't think much of it, because again, none of those rules applied to them, until the HOA sent a letter anyway. The letter stated that because OP's property was adjacent to and in the immediate vicinity of HOA properties, OPA was now in violation of the HOA's dog policy. The HOA claimed this position was supported by numerous court cases and well-established law, though they didn't cite a single one. OP ignored the letter, assuming it was an empty threat. It wasn't. The HOA began issuing fines of $100 per week. No hearing, no appeal, just a running total that kept increasing. After 3 months, the amount exceeded $1,200. OP continued to ignore the notices, believing the HOA had no authority and would eventually back down. Instead, the HOA escalated again, threatening to place a lien on OP's home and claiming they would sue the recorder of deeds for failing to retroactively apply HOA covenants. When OP rebuilt the house years earlier, at that point OP realized this wasn't just an overzealous board member. The letters were coming from a real law firm, signed by a real attorney who specialized in obscure Pennsylvania property laws involving forced sales, liens, and covenant modifications. Even if the HOA was wrong, they clearly knew how to make life difficult. OP started taking the situation seriously. Family members stayed at the house so it was never left vacant. Security measures were increased. And then something genuinely disturbing happened. Someone threw raw steaks into OP's yard. OP feared the meat might be poisoned, either as a threat or an attempt to harm the dogs. What started as a paperwork dispute was now starting to feel unsafe. That's when OP finally contacted attorneys. 2 lawyers reviewed the situation. One focused on real estate law, the other on liens and debt collection. Their assessment was both reassuring and unsettling. The HOA almost certainly had no legal authority to fine OP or enforce its covenants on non-HOA property. However, Pennsylvania law allows HOAs to act on matters affecting the planned community, language broad enough to justify harassment through legal filings, even if the HOA ultimately loses. The lawyers described it as a war of attrition. The HOA might not win, but they could still drain time, money, and peace of mind. As for retroactively modifying OP's deed, the attorneys explained that it was theoretically possible only under extreme circumstances involving clear clerical errors. Nothing about OP's situation met that standard. The risk was low, but not zero. OP was advised not to respond directly, not to apply for new permits, and to monitor the property title closely. The lawyers drafted a firm letter telling the HOA to back off. Within days, the response came, and it wasn't what anyone expected. A senior partner from the HOS law firm admitted their client had made a serious mistake. After digging into township records, it became clear that multiple parties had filed conflicting information during the development process. A road the HOA believed they owned was actually township property. County emergency management had required it to connect to a main road, changing ownership in the process. No one properly informed the HOA, and they operated under false assumptions for years. It got worse. The builder's environmental report had improperly lumped HOA and non-HOA properties together when calculating stormwater runoff. This allowed the builder to avoid constructing an expensive retention pond. Instead, OP and a neighbor were pressured into installing drainage pits that, legally, were never required. The paperwork was wrong from the beginning. Once those errors came to light, everything unraveled quickly. The HOA dropped the fines, withdrew the lien threats, and stopped all contact. Their attorneys even invited OP to join them in pursuing action against the builder responsible for the mess. After months of stress, fear, and intimidation, it was finally over. The takeaway is simple. HOAs can and will overreach if they think they can get away with it, and legal-sounding threats don't always mean legal authority. OP never did anything wrong, and once the facts were exposed, the HOA had no ground to stand on. Let me know in the comments what you would have done in OP's position, and if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you tomorrow with another one.